home not working. There just seems to be this sort of like entitlement that's associated with this whole thing.
For most of human history, this worked because men had the resources. And so there was sort of this arrangement where women could often marry.
Okay, so men had the resources, but let's forget about the dowry here. Let's see what she's got to say.
Had the resources. And so there was sort of this arrangement where women could often marry someone who was more educated or earned more. But over the last 50 years, that's really changed. And so what I'm seeing in my work, working one-on-one with women, is that when they say that there aren't enough good guys to go around, that's actually true. So we now have this huge mating
There's not
gap.
enough good guys to go around, and it's true. Man, this is just such BS right here.
Where we have these high-performing,
The women have changed how they operate in society. They take half the jobs away from men. There's double the labor in here. Wages are down. It's equal now, and they're not going to want to marry a guy that makes as much or even a little bit less than them. They want to marry guys that make more than them, so they're going to be like, there's not as many good men. She really needs to figure out how to describe that situation without having to use the word good here. She needs to say is women want men that make more than them, but they still want to make their own money. Women want to live by this, his money is our money, my money is my money, which is complete bullshit. And like that's like the one thing that really needs to be taken down right
earning
there.
women that have done the work and gone to therapy and work out, and they're ready for their great partner.
These women that have done the work and they go to therapy and work out and they're ready for their great partner.
They're not able to find enough guys who are available. And
they're all going after the same guy. They're all getting ran through. They're all giving it up. We all know that.
If this is a problem now with the women I work with in their 30s, we are going to be facing a much more severe crisis 10, 15 years from now. So currently 60% of college enrollment is women, but soon it's going to be for every 2 women that graduate, it'll be 1 man. So that means,
oh my God. Men need to step up, work 3 jobs to make more money. Yeah, and do the housework. They get the jobs because of DEI and other systems as well. Everyone was focused on race with DEI. When DEI benefited women the most. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Klaus says, and then they complain they don't do housework after the 3rd job. Yeah, exactly. It's all bullshit. It's all BS, man. I swear to God, MGTOW wins again. It's just delusional at this point. And then to add insult to injury, a lot of these same women will go and get with some random dude, like, whoever the hell, some player type seductive guy. And then all the rest of all these, what makes a good man or not, just goes right out the window anyways. So then there's that. Regarding economics, Gary's economics spells out what's down the pipe. Avoid Gary's. Take if you're not into horror stories. Men getting trashed decade after decade, women most affected. Exactly. It's almost like men don't want to always do university work and go straight into a labor job. It's just, yeah, well, especially if you're not going to be appreciated for it or be able to get what was, promised out of that life. And then say you are that guy. And the problem is with a lot of these good guys is a lot of the good guys that hit that level. Psych Hacks talks about this also. There's this concept of overpaying. You get there, you get to that level, you work hard, and then you're supposed to like get married to this woman who's making less than you, is going to sit here and complain and be like, oh, you're not helping with the housework and all this kind of stuff. And then that guy gets screwed over at no fault divorce. There's enough guys up there who are like, I'm not taking that crappy deal. You know what I mean? So monogamy doesn't make sense for them. And monogamy, again, is incentivized by the dowry. A guy with that type of prospect is incentivized to be monogamous because a woman and her family make an offer on that guy that's too good to give up, and you're stupid if you don't take it. It's like, all right, I'll be monogamous with you. And then this creates positive assortative mating going down the branch there. But the problem is women don't realize what class they're in, and they haven't accepted that. So they really need to be given a reality check on that. Kyle Wells says the lack of economically viable men is a notion parroted by women who barely have 2 viable brain cells to rub together. It's the epitome of women's desire to have their cake and eat it too. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. I want to be able to do all the same jobs as men, take the jobs from the men, be given preference over the men in college or this or that, be told I'm amazing, have men be talked down to. And then when it comes to marriage, a man making enough isn't good enough. He needs to be top 10% or whatever Scott Galloway's talking about here. and do all this extra stuff because I give birth and do all that, and he needs to help out with the housework, and then he wants me to work and this and that. It's just such BS. Like, nobody really cares about hearing that anymore. Klaus says they really think we are that stupid to fall for that trick again. Incredible. Yeah, absolutely not.
Half of those women will not have a guy who graduates.
If you want to sit at home as a woman and you want to sit there and focus on childbirth and do all that and just worry about the house, and you want to, she's talking about this kind of trad lifestyle. This is cake and eat it too, because she's talking about women who have a career, and then when it comes to having kids, they want to live a trad wife life. That whatever the hell this cosplayed version of a trad wife life is. You cannot do that unless you bring a dowry to this marriage. If you're working from 18 to 33 and you haven't saved any goddamn money, sorry to cuss, I apologize for that, and you haven't saved any money for your marriage, then yeah, you're going to have a hard time when you have kids, because you're not going to have a plan to figure out that moment of time. And it's not just the guy's burden to do that. It's both of your responsibilities to do that. He will continue working as you're nursing and doing these things for the kids. Meanwhile, the money you saved while you were working from 18 to 33, which I know you saved because you're not irresponsible, is going to be used to help buttress some of these expenses and the household and all this stuff while you're at home, you know, with these kids from 0 to 7 or however the heck old they need to be. And beyond further than that, I mean, having a relationship with your parents and your extended family used to be part of the game here. And they, you know, everyone helped out with taking care of the kids, you know, grandma or something like that. And in return, the elderly get taken care of by their kids as well. I mean, we're so damn far away from this. It's spiraling down. It's spiraling down. Murder of Crow says, imagine when she makes more and also comes from wealth too. Yeah, exactly.
From college. And so this is a crisis because these women are saying,
if she comes from wealth and she's not married or she can't find one, that's a failure of her entire family. Because regardless of her coming from wealth, her family does not want to put down on a marriage from her or for her. They don't want to put down and be like, this is the offer. Let's go find someone in your class from another family that matches ours. And this is what we're going to do in terms of the dowry to ensure monogamy. So again, this is just another failure of romantic love, and they haven't figured it out yet. She's sitting here operating on, well, the man and the provider, and traditionally the women look for the, and then she's forgetting the whole other half of how that works in a civilization, in a monogamous civilization with no divorce, or very rare divorce, a dowry society. iTrevor says, our society has adopted a hyena social structure where the women get supported at every stage of her life and the men get fed scraps and get kicked out into the wilderness once they are old enough. Yeah, it's just a state-sponsored wealth transfer. Men are a utility value object. You know, and if you're not married with kids, they're still going to get you to help support the welfare state, all this kind of stuff. And it's just, it's crazy that she talks about like these stats with women and, oh, they're going to make less in perpetuity. Meanwhile, most, you know, homeless people out there, I'm pretty sure are men. I'll have to double check that. Nobody gives a damn about them. It's too late. It's too gone. They just weren't top 10%. Sorry. You know? My main thing is, man, is men need to stop giving away marriage for free. We are past that. If she's going to sit here and she's going to say the best marriages happen at 30 and 32, and that woman hasn't saved any money for the marriage, but they're expecting that you have, oh, no, that ain't going to go over. That's not going to go over. She is not ready for marriage. Marriage shouldn't even be in her vocabulary. You got zero money, and you're sitting here and you're expecting the guy to shoulder all this stuff? Hell no. You better come in there with some money.
Okay, if you cannot be the provider, then you need to be offering more. Emotional intelligence is the new currency in dating. But
if you can't be the provider, okay, so equal provisioning doesn't help. So you either need to be the provider or you need to be a butt kisser.
Guys were raised not to be emotionally intelligent, not to give emotional support, but to be a provider.
The whole other part of this is that when men do this emotional game, the attraction diminishes. And that's what red pill, the praxeology, the sort of attraction science, so to speak, has figured out. Women are not attracted to that. We know that. which is where her little theory here falls apart.
And so they've been chasing this lion. I'm going to hunt for this lion of being a provider. But suddenly they're told you need to hunt for a tiger, which is emotional intelligence. They don't have the skills to do that. And so women have raised.
I want them to talk about, I want to hear her opinion, both of their opinions on what emotional intelligence is and how that factors into a relationship. I think that would be fair to hear that from them. Klaus says saved money and has paid her college debts, I might add. Yeah, exactly. Both of those things. Kyle Wells says, to the extent that there is an actual solution to this problem, it will most likely come on the micro individual level. One man who walks off the plantation eventually becomes 1 million, and so on. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think MGTOW is the place to go, and men just do their own thing and take care of themselves. The thing that I think is a good addition to MGTOW is this understanding of how to truly negotiate and say, hey, I'm willing to get married, but this is the deal that looks fair for us guys here on this side. So men have gone MGTOW, and I think now men are figuring out, now that we're over here and they're panicking, here's what our negotiation strategy should look like. And if you're going to look at this sort of stratified layer of guys, men who are up here versus men who are here, and MGTOW encompasses guys who are out here sleeping with multiple women but not committed to them, and guys who are way down here who are having trouble. But as the guys up here start to figure out, if I'm going to do this monogamous thing and if society wants me to do that, this is a deal that makes sense, and this is a woman that's worth marrying. She needs to come with this, and if she doesn't have it, then her family needs to give it to her when she gets married to me. And until they figure that out, and it's like if they want to lock those guys down and they take that deal, then it should start going down the line as a positive assertive matching system right there. So we got to remember exactly what a deal for a marriage looks like if we're going to take that route. And hell, in this gynocentric family law system, it's still a big ass risk. But at the very least, coming with nothing and expecting men to provide everything, those days are gone. Murder of Crow says, your analogy is striking to iTrevor. Dominant female hyenas have pseudo nuts also. Comment says, well, this woman is just speaking brain rot information a bunch. Yeah, she hasn't really said anything remarkable.
Are in terms of what they need from men, while men are continuously falling behind.
Women don't even know what they want in that regard. Let's hear more about this emotional intelligence. I think, because they haven't explained it yet, but just from what Scott has discussed, it's more about being able to talk about your emotions from the guy side, which is just code for them saying they want more power over you. But let's hear them expound on that a bit.
Yeah, there's a lot there. There's some nuance around the pay thing. So the data I've seen is that women under the age of 30 in urban areas are now making more money. But to your point, the moment they have kids, where corporate America has really failed is it hasn't figured out a way to maintain a woman's professional trajectory once she decides to deploy her ovaries and have kids.
Deploy her ovaries and have kids.
And there's some data saying, okay, 2/3 of divorce can be reverse engineered to the man starting to make less money. When the woman in the relationship starts making more money, they become twice as likely to get divorced, 3 times as likely to use ED drugs because the guy loses a sense of purpose and self-esteem.
The study I read about that says that if you're married, that only happens if you get married and the woman was making less money before, and then it changes. Something changes there. But if you guys both got married and they were both making around the same, then that doesn't happen. So someone gave me a study on that once. Kyle says, emotional intelligence is to stupid women what body positivity is to fat women. When you don't have the real thing, you just start making stuff up to accommodate your deficiencies. Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like a bunch of goalpost stuff. And it's like, the stupid thing about that is the woman gets to sit here and be in charge of the goalposts of what emotional intelligence is. It's already a recipe for disaster, just off the face of it.
What gets lost in that data is the reality is if a woman is stepping up and stepping into the economic void and being more economically
what these women really want is to be cheated on. I'm sorry to say that. It sounds really mean. I'm sorry, but that's what they're looking for, and that's really what they're attracted to. And they're attracted to these top quote-unquote good men, and let me tell you, those good men are sleeping with a bunch of women and cheating on them, and that's what they want. You know what I mean? That's what they're attracted to. It's not some guy that's going to sit there and be all emotionally this and that with her. They're not looking for that. Believe me, men would have been willing and have tried to do that many times and it doesn't work. Vapor says men are falling behind because we are trying to look to support ourselves for the future and don't want to force things and get screwed over later on. That's exactly what it is. Most guys are like, hell no, I'm not getting screwed over with the gray divorce or living in some dead bedroom situation where you pay everything and then it all goes to hell. And she literally, they brought it up in here about the lottery winner effect. The lottery winner effect is what happens to these women who marry guys who are these good provider guys. And she doesn't bring anything of value to the marriage. No money, no financial, nothing, no dowry. So it's like she won the lottery because she found this guy. A year later, they get bored with it. And then you're in dead bedroomville. And then she starts thinking about how amazing it was in college. And you know what I mean? How, all these crazy times she had and how she misses that. And then the guy finds that, in her text messages with her friends. Then he's calling John Deloney and he's asking John Deloney about it. And then John Deloney's going to say, well, you knew about this though, right? Maybe it's something with you. And then that's where it's going to be. So true about emotional intelligence. Not so much the concept itself, but the people who throw the term around. Yeah, it's just another power grab.
Greater economic contributor, then logically it would make sense. Being a greater economic contributor, then logically it would make sense that men need to step up logistically. And I think what a lot of women are saying is like, okay, I'm not getting anything.
Men need to step up logistically.
And I think what a lot of women are saying is like, okay, I'm not getting anything. You're no longer a provider. And by the way, you haven't filled that void. You haven't made up the delta. Mm-hmm. So
it's crazy because you can say men feel the same thing when it comes to marriage. You're not providing anything. What the hell's the woman doing? What is she bringing to the table? Hey, Paul and I had a whole discussion about this. You will have women out here straight up say they are the table and it's not their job to bring anything. And how do you even dare ask them that?
There's some nuance around it.
Yeah, this guy, man, I don't know, man. Damn, we're 30 minutes in. We got another 2 hours of this. He's not, man. This ain't it right here. This ain't resonating.
Also, I think it's important to say is that if women are better students and showing the discipline and the skills to go to college and an information economy and making more money, then okay, good on them.
Yeah, start bringing some money to this marriage and get used to paying bills.
Just as for whatever reason men made more money, maybe it wasn't fair, but it's not a crime against humanity if women have the skills to make more money. What happens, though, is
it's a problem when they don't want to share that money with the family, and there's no familial sense of duty here, and you just expect men to do that while they're hoarding that money for themselves.
The second order effects that you're talking about, and that is, and we don't like to talk about this, 75% of women say that economic viability is hugely important in a mate. Only 25% of men. For men, it's not a criteria. For women, it is.
We're about to change that, Scott Galloway. That's changing, and it's starting here on This Is Shah's channel. Sorry. We're resurrecting the lost wisdom of the dowry and how that affects finances of family planning and marriage, and it's going to become a criteria, just so you know.
Chris Williamson of the Modern Wisdom podcast, he has this great stat, or he calls it the high heels effect, and that is 50% of women say they won't date a man shorter than them. I'm curious what you think, but I think it's more like 80%. I think it's an embarrassing thing to say because just instinctively, women feel like they'll be vulnerable during gestation and they want someone they think physically could protect them.
If we're going to go with instincts here, then we got to let men go on their instincts also. I mean, if it's just about instincts and at this point it's okay to have these instincts, then, I guess it's going to have to go both ways here. Klaus says, yeah, but if the woman has a rich guy, she can have a personal trainer for all the things she misses in the marriage. Yeah, exactly. Economic viability be damned. The Common Sensible says they refuse to acknowledge how incredibly selfish and conceited women have become. Even Charlie Kirk stated recently, this massive issue. These people are completely clueless about skills and education. He hasn't brought it up once. Like, listen, on the one hand, if women can make this money and do all this stuff, what is she contributing financially to this marriage? She should be. If women are having a hard time out here finding a good man, they need to rethink their offer in order to find this quote unquote good man. And part of that's going to involve some type of dowry-esque thing into this equation, which is like, hey, I saved up this much. I'm not talking to private jet guy over here. I'm talking to normal people who are in my class. And this is how much I'm looking at for a house. I got 100,000 sitting here on the side. This is what I make. Here's my finances. What's yours? Let's talk about how we would plan this out and what marriage and the family planning here looks like. Instead, we got this Hinge lady over here who has access to all this data, and her solution is to men need to have more EQ, and if men aren't going to be the providers, then they need to bring this. Okay. Kyle Wells says, I believe the statistic regarding income disparity predicting divorce was if when a woman starts bringing in greater than 60% or household income, the couple is about 40% more likely to divorce, known as the 60-40 rule. That's interesting. That's interesting right there. Yeah, the one I saw was that if they both went in and they're whatever it was, even if it was less or whatever, but they both got married based off that, then there wasn't much change and things like that. But if it started off with the guy as the provider, probably because he's a gynocentric tradcon and believes that his protect and provide, and he's been leading with his wallet and leading with his money, and probably really doesn't know much about actually seducing a woman. So he's sitting in there and like, I did this, you should like me now. And then when he starts getting out-earned, it really affects things in the bedroom. Nick Defy says, I think a lot of men are feeling that way about society in general. What is it bringing to the table? Especially, that's true on a collective level too. Especially men working dangerous or just shit jobs that women don't do. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. And this is where you get a lot of guys trying a lot of different things, whether it's going MGTOW or some guys are, they'll become passport bros or something and go somewhere else. Murder of Crows says buzzwords, no substance at all. Exactly. Hey, Ahmed, welcome in, bro. Med says, what's up, Shah? Just chilling, man. Great to have you in here, bro. Murder of Crows, Galloway bringing up Chad. Chris Williamson, can you believe?
I just think it's hardwired into them even if they don't know it. Women, metaphorically, are getting taller every year. And women made horizontally and up, and men horizontally and down.
Right.
And
something about this, like this as a given, needs to go away. Especially when it comes to mating. Because the truth is that marriages happen from here just horizontally. This is what Dowry did. And this is what Dowry did for thousands of years. All the way going back to Troika in ancient Greece, Dos in the Roman Empire, all the way through United Christendom, all the way through, very, very relatively recently. That's what Dowry is designed to do. So no, you're not right about that. Men do not mate down and women do not mate up. People mate across the sort of status hierarchy here. And the check on that hypergamy, if you're talking about animals, all right, listen, if we go straight back to animals and we're not in a civilization, we're playing by animal rules, then okay, I guess Scott Galloway is right. But if we live in a civilization, which I think that we do, then no, there's other stuff that go into that. Galloway, let's see, I read that one. Vapor says, I'm realizing more that people discuss these specific topics, look from it from one point of view and not a complete overview from a more objective basis. Why instincts if you can just use logic? Yeah, I mean, are we not human over here? Great point, Vapor. Murder of Crows says, why not go hiking and find a bear? Yeah.
And when the pool of horizontal and up keeps shrinking, they just have, so this notion, a ton of great women.
This guy, I don't know, man. This guy just seems like, for all the data and all the bean counting these people do, it seems like they're mostly getting their stuff from just watching different stuff on the internet, a kind of loose understanding of red pill stuff or manosphere stuff or whatever, dating stuff. And they're just kind of trying to jam it into, they're trying to jam a freaking circle peg into a square hole right now, and it ain't working. I expect more from these folks who sit here and say they dedicated their life to looking at all this data and they got access to all this data. What they need to do is open a history book and figure out how it was and what the hell changed, and then figure out where we're going from here. Common Sensible says 100% correct. We used to check hypergamy because of the way human beings formed classes in society and community. Yeah, I mean, and that's really the case. That's really the case. Especially in monogamous dowry-paying societies. And even if you look at polygynous bride wealth-paying societies where the man's side pays the woman's family bride wealth amount so that they can replace her in that family. Those women aren't sitting at home not doing anything because then they have the babies. No, they're on the field working. And then they have babies because they're healthy and they can do that. And the body's designed for that. And, you know, people are working together and they're on the fields working hard. Women have always worked. I'll say that for sure. In a monogamous dowry paying society, their jobs got more housebound because they didn't need to be on the field, because the plow tilled so much land at one time that it can make way more calories of food than the regular subsistence farming that they were doing before that could, which was done by hand tools. That's why they worked so hard in a polygynous society and why there was a bride wealth. Not paid to her, paid to her family because they labored. In a dowry paying society, they were more housebound because they didn't have to be outside because the plow did so good of a job. And then that's what led to stratification, monogamy, and all these kinds of things. So they are missing a key point of this whole discussion.
Where are the men? Or there's no men? There's a lot of men, just not men they'd want to date.
Right.
And then you speedball it with the guys who are in the top 10%
and
can
again,
engage in portion.
This is what happens when romantic love completely takes over. What they're talking about, men don't want to date and or that women don't want to date. This is completely love detection model. This is completely it's straight. It's not civilizational at all. It's straight animal level of like, this is who I want. You know what I mean? And it's people using short-term sexual appeal to try to lock down a long-term marriage situation, which is just fated to fail from the very beginning, if that's what your entire criteria for selecting a spouse is going to be. And civilization knew that. It knew that for a long time. So, what he's trying to do is he's trying to find a solution that accommodates the sort of animal aspect of the sexual nature. And it's not, I don't see that working. Cowell says Galloway actually has a fair grasp of the intergenerational conflict and why millennials would unplug a boomer's life support to charge their iPhones. But he misses the mark when it comes to the sexes. I'll have to hear some of his other stuff on intergenerational stuff. The intergenerational stuff, again, is important because, again, going back to a dowry-based society, a lot of that is inherited wealth that's threaded through. And they have a specific way of doing it so that some of the inheritance happens at the marriage through the woman's dowry, and then the other part of the inheritance happens when the son gets his later on in life. So it creates these different checkpoints that help families go. Common Sensible says people used to marry because of religion, race, class, then learn to love or found love in some regard within that. Yeah. And that, I believe the word for that is called endogamy. That's where you marry within a specific group. It could be a religion, it could be a race, it could be a class. With the dowry system, it could be multiple of those, but specifically class especially. And again, it doesn't mean that love doesn't exist all the way. It just means there's a check on when love goes from something that maybe is good to attract people to something that's completely foolish and crazy, where you like lose your mind, basically, where you're love drunk. Like within a class and within a group of people is a certain amount of people. And it's basically saying, hey, look, if you're going to get married, choose between this set of people. And within that set of people is probably going to be some people that you like more or that you like less. And within that, you could try to find a long-term pairing when we're talking about marriage, not short-term. But if you're going to sit here and you're going to be some successful businessman or some NBA player, and you're not looking within your class, and you're going to sit here and you're going to pick up some woman that you met on IG who's showing her booty and probably doesn't even make that much money regardless, and that's going to be your choice, that's not going to work out. That's just a completely irrational decision right there.
Polygamy. They can get, with the guys who are in the top 10%, can engage in portion polygamy. They can get a date every goddamn night.
Yeah, and then he needs to, there's a double question here, which is something that should lead him to the dowry. If these women are trying to get with these guys that are up here, why aren't the top 10% deciding to settle down and choose a monogamous marriage? Why is that? If he answers that question, he will understand it's because monogamy is only incentivized for those guys if there is some kind of contribution or offer made that signals a certain class status from the other family, from her herself. And these women that are on the bottom with their jobs or whatever, that are looking for guys that are way above them in class, because that's what this top 10% means. He's talking about average women trying to lock down a guy up there. And they bring nothing other than, hey, this is my job, but I have no savings. I have nothing. My family's given me no money. I don't come from a family that has any status. And I want you to sit here and be monogamous with me. It's not going to work. Murder of Crow says dowry is to compensate for the ick, and in turn, men's exasperation from trying to compensate for all her emotional literacy, i.e. insufferableness. Yeah, well, nowadays, there's just nothing there. There's just like, you need to have all this EQ. Trevor said, just imagine how much higher a woman's standards would be if they did not have a biological clock. Yeah, that's true too.
Which does not encourage long-term or very good behavior. So the guys they all want are not incented to enter into long-term relationships.
Okay, what does incentivize them to enter into long-term relationships? You should know, Mr. Galloway, there's been top 10% men in civilization for a very long time. It's not like this is supposed to be some mystery. How come Mr. Scott Galloway hasn't answered that question yet?
The bottom half of men are literally shut out of the mating market.
Mm-hmm.
And
so this is a question of monogamy, about what drives monogamy.
We always kind of, and this goes to your bailiwick, kind of portray men as the predators and the idiots and they just got their act together. There's something strange going on in that is online dating. When a woman can go out with a guy, a high status male, and I'll put forward this thesis and I want you to respond to it.
Oh, here comes the thesis. I bet you we all heard it a bunch of times.
She can have sex with him.
Okay. Oh, here comes the thesis. Here comes the thesis that this professor guy came up with. Oh, after all this data and research, I came up with this thesis. This didn't come from the manosphere at all.
Gives her the impression that's her weight class for a relationship, but he's not interested in a relationship. And then she basically decides the bottom 90.
Who came up with that? Is this his thesis?
Are no longer in her weight class. And you can't tell a woman to lower her expectations.
Yeah. Why can't you?
But the reality is...
Why can't you? I mean, that question right there, I think, gets to the root of this. It's because of gynocentrism. Actually, we're going to have to start telling them that, hey, you need to pay attention to your class.